All right, Coach. Going into week 2, man. Obviously, very exciting trip last week. The opportunity for those guys and for your families, too, to be able to go to Eastern Washington. Before we get into the game itself, kind of talk to me about what you thought about the trip overall.
Well, we thought it was a really great experience. We wanted to really kind of make it a big time deal, and part of the reason behind this trip was to have our kids experience kind of a Division I type of trip. And so I think all the support, all the people that helped get that going was a big deal, and we're most grateful for all the behind the scenes work that it went into getting that much operation going, because there's a lot involved when it talks about getting planes going and buses lined up and food and buses back to the airport and all those things. So as far as the trip went, it went really well.
Thoughts on last week with the game, 59-31 loss. Obviously you talked about this in postgame, and it makes sense as a coach. You're never happy with moral victories. It's not something you guys really want to focus on. However, with the team FCS level, 4th ranked in FCS right now, you guys performed well, down 31-0 early, came back, scored 17 straight, got within 2 scores going into halftime. I mean, you guys really stepped up.
Well, in all summer and all leading into this game, I mean, everybody I talked to, friends of mine, coaching friends of mine, every time they'd say, "Hey, who do you open up with?" And I'd say Eastern Washington. The response was always like, "Whoa, wow," or "What were you thinking?" And it was just one of those things where we knew that the opponent that we were playing. I think that was the strategy. Is that when we came here, our goal was to get this program on a national spotlight, and to do that, you got to go play teams like this. You got to find out what they look like, what it feels like, to see a team like that play. And, so that was a little bit of the strategy of why we took this Eastern game, why we took the Midwestern game, is we can get playoff teams on our schedule. We got to start seeing what that looks like. To get there, you got to do that. So, I was, for some reason, it was a weird feeling after the game of not a lot of disappointment, because, in a loss, it's just, you still want to try to win a game. I didn't tell the team till afterwards. The Vegas line had us as 47-point underdogs, and I saw that in the week, and never said a word to anybody, because we just couldn't overcome the first quarter. I mean, I think that was one of those things where first big play right out of the chute. Big stage. A lot of first game. That's a lot of it too. Is your first game. And but at the end of the day, when we started kind of seeing, once we settled down and we started kind of swinging back and starting to answer back, and the game subsided, we started to play, and we just they just hit too many big plays on us, and we had too many 3-and-outs early. But I was encouraged that we could move the ball, and we got some. We defensively we did some good things too. It's just the scoreboard makes you think that we didn't. But when you see the film and you kind of review it, a lot of positive things out of that game.
You kind of mentioned it earlier with me off air, basically talking about, you take out that first quarter, you guys basically back and forth with them. I mean, sorry to cut you off, but second quarter, especially when you're down 31-0, 17 straight going into half. And then in the third quarter, I noticed you guys started like kind of going back and forth scoring wise. And it's like, you got to be thinking in the back of your mind, even though you guys are down to the scoreboard, wow, we're going, back and forth in a shootout with the number 4 team in FCS.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, that's why, when we look at, when you look at the end of the game and the score, it's like, man, if we would have played, that first quarter, and we tried to prepare them for that, just kind of letting them know that, hey, the first quarter, you've got to kind of take that first punch. You got to be able to, it's going to be a lot. We showed them history of the Appalachian State-Michigan game years ago, and how they were down quick. Of all these upsets, we saw that teams were down quick, but then they kind of battled back. So they, at the end of the day, it was just too much of the first quarter that we kind of let get on us. But like I said, we never quit. And when I say that, what the little things I wanted to see too is just how we were handling on our sideline. When the adversity hit, did we start arguing? Were we bickering? Were we not supporting each other? I mean, not a thing. I think that's why I was so encouraged to see how much support we had for each other between the offense, the defense, and vice versa. Nobody losing their composure. Usually that's the signs of a good football team.
What was the feeling like in the locker room between the coaches, the players, everybody, kind of after the game?
This is what was encouraging, is that it wasn't a locker room where we're just smiling and saying, hey, they recognized the same stuff. They felt good that they fought back. But to hear kids over and over again saying, Coach, this we could have won this game if we'd have just done this. If we'd have, if I would have done this, if taking accountability, saying, hey, if we would have just done our assignment here in this drive, and that was another encouraging thing, because it wasn't like, hey, we came out here just to play a game and we feel good because we put 31 points on this team. No, they were taking a lot of accountability, and that feeling of, man, why shouldn't we have won? I mean, if we'd have just done our assignments, if we'd have done that, and the accountability part gave me another jolt of encouragement with this team.
It was awesome to see their fight, as you mentioned, just to continue to never stop going, especially on offense too. We talk about Cade Brister. They stopped the running game. I mean, obviously, Nash Sutherland had some troubles getting going. Cade led the team in rushing with 58 yards. They were a good defense stopping the run, but
Absolutely.
Cade came out, threw 4 touchdowns, 283 yards, and he stepped up big time.
Yeah, and the adjustments that we made, I mean, we were going to try to, we wanted to try to go ball control with the historics traditionally of this team of Eastern is they put a lot of points on. If you look at their 5-year average, I mean, it's amazing how explosive their offense has been traditionally, and they're going to be that again this year. I mean, they're just, that quarterback's too good, and they're so, when they kind of shut that down, we kind of needed to make some adjustments. We started taking some shots down the field, and it took playmakers, to see Peyton Rose step up in some of those big plays. Cade, even by the words of their coach in the post game, was very impressed with Cade. As are we, just the competitor he is, and made smart decisions. We talked about not taking sacks when was able to get the ball away and keep us out of those long. So we learned a lot. But, the adjustments we had to make, because, we kind of wanted to try to get the run game going a little bit, try to keep the clock moving, get it out of the offensive hands. And that was part of that first quarter that we talked about not handling. We had too many 3-and-outs quick, and our defense was right back out there. But, coaches made good adjustments. We started to settle down.
You mentioned Peyton, Eric Henneman, guys on the offensive side. Even Najee Jackson had a big-time game, over 80 yards receiving. The big thing that I had, too, with Peyton and Eric is that those 3 touchdowns are all scored on third down and are in the red zone. I mean, huge plays by those guys.
Yeah, and that was another thing, too, is we know how explosive our offense can be, and you mentioned those playmakers and all those guys. They have to do that week in and week out, and we feel comfortable that they will. I think we want to get back to, we want to run the football, and I think we're gonna stay patient with getting that going. We have some new guys up front. It's going to take some time to gel that a little bit on the offensive line, but we need that consistency week in and week out, and and I think obviously Henneman was a target that they really wanted to take out of the game. We were able to kind of get him freed up on some things, and that was part of the adjustment, was positioning him where we could get Eric involved there in the second quarter. That was part of it, where we were starting to find him a little bit, because they were definitely focused on him.
Oh yeah. As far as defense goes, obviously it's always tough giving them 59 points. What are some things that you saw that were very positive for that team, just with the D-line getting to the quarterback a few times, obviously Uchenna, a couple sacks, and just really just a lot of energy going on, but what are some good things that you saw from them?
Well, one of the things we want to focus on is this offseason was running to the football. I did notice when we were tackling, I mean, we had a lot of people around the football. That was one of our nemesis that worry you about first games, is we had way too many missed tackles in that game. But what I did like from a positive standpoint is we were pursuing, we were running to the football. It's just some little things that, some of our DBs learned a little bit, just in, the first play of the game was just eye violation. Those are things we talk about that, when you get in the game and your eyes are wide and the guys run, Ricky's actually in the first play of the game that they score on. I mean, he's in pretty good position, but his eyes were back staring at the quarterback while he's running. And, the guy got a little bit more separation. And of course, quarterback just dropped in a perfect throw. Ricky was actually almost right there, almost batted the ball away. But, it's just little things like that you learn in games like this. Hey, keep your head, catch up, keep your eye on your target. But when you look back, you're gonna distance a little bit. Those are all things you see on film that are correctable. Not really. What I was encouraged, just really didn't have blown assignments. I mean, they are so good at keeping you off balance with the quick screen game and then going deep, and then some of the dig routes and stuff that they were getting us on to extend the change. what they do so well offensively that gives a lot of pride. I mean, I look at their last year in the Big Sky. They score a lot of points, and they keep you guessing. On when they do a great job of when they're going to run their quick screen game. They run it very well, and their offensive line. I mean, they had three guys that they got 6-year medical red shirts at medicals to get their 6th year, and so. At first when we took that game, we didn't think that those guys were going to be gone. Well, I think we said they had 240 some games between them as an offensive line. So that's a big weapon.
So after week 1, what are your takeaways going into week 2?
So takeaways are: do we match the preparation and intensity of practice? Not get complacent, not feel good just because we played decently in some spots in this game. And obviously, I think we felt our team is very inspired by this. I don't think they walked off losing confidence. But that's the takeaway is just we played a really high quality opponent. We got another high quality opponent coming in. Do they believe us when we tell them, how good Midwestern State is and not kind of get a big head? There's nothing really to get a big head for. Mm-hmm. But and I don't sense that. And I don't sense that in our first practice, and we'll see kind of how the day goes. I think they see a template of their preparation that they want to follow this week. And but I have a different feeling. I think the kids have a different feeling than maybe what we did last year. Like when we would be a week of Northwest Missouri or Fort Hays or one of the top tier teams in the league last year. We would look around at practice and go, man, do these guys really believe they can win?
Right.
I feel different. Like they do belong. They feel like they belong. They do feel like they can win. They know it's not going to come easy, but it's just a different feeling this year.
And it all starts with attitude, like you said. The way that maybe teams in the past, after you lose a game like that to Eastern Washington, but you can say, hey, we scored 31 points against them. You may be happy, but these guys aren't content, which is always good to have with your football team.
Yeah, and the keeping your head up mentality. I mean, we always talk about what's important now after a big play or after a touchdown, and that's what I saw. I didn't see any discouragement. I didn't see. It was kind of like, hey, let's get back out there and try to get a stop. So another positive.
So Midwestern State coming to town. They're 1-0. They took down an FCS school last week in Northwestern State, 33-7. Mm-hmm. What are some things early you see from them?
Well, I always look at tradition. I look at really the personality, the character of a program. These guys, other than last year, was the first year they hadn't been in the playoffs in quite some time. So there's a bunch of kids on the team that have been a playoff. They've been a playoff team. They still had a very good record last year, but they're just a team that's won a lot, and they know how to win. And so, I look at that. I think schematically, they've got great athletes. They do a good job coaching those guys. They beat an FCS team. And that's the other thing our kids, knew right away. They beat. I don't care the quality of the team, doesn't matter. I mean, we didn't dive into that too much. The reality is that they beat an FCS team, and so. So that's what I see is just a team that knows how to win. They're used to winning, and they're going to be confident coming in here without a doubt.
And obviously, the home opener for Lindenwood as well at Hunter Stadium should be a very exciting atmosphere. What are some things that you want to see change from last week? We saw a lot of positives you mentioned, but are some things that you really are going to key on in practice this week?
Yeah, just clean up the mistakes. I mean, I think trusting your assignments, not doing stuff that you're not supposed to do, and maybe doing your job. I think when you saw that when we did those things. We did a lot of positive things last week. I think when we looked at the film after Eastern game, and you realize, well, this play happened because of this, or we lost a cup here, or we didn't fit a gap here. And then the second, third quarter, when we started doing those things, it's like, hey, the results were positive. So I think it's just cleaning up. A lot of that's out of first games. I mean, right. I think just we have a lot of we have a lot of returners, but we've got some new faces out there too that played their first game. We got to continue really positive with our special teams. I thought our special teams played the best on Saturday of all our teams. I mean, they performed very well. And so I feel like we got our special teams in place that can help us. We lost games last year due to special teams. I think this year can be a significant factor in wins as opposed to what happened last year.
kind of a difference between, obviously Eastern Washington, he played last week, and a team like Midwestern State is the fact that they're not so balanced, at least from, the first game they saw. They still ran for over 100, but their quarterback, Zach Purcell, was 26 of 40, 3 touchdowns, 323 yards. Very good passing offense. So how do you kind of prep as a head coach and for the defensive coordinator, Eric Inama? How do you guys kind of prep for the team like this that you can tell is pretty pass heavy?
Well, it's follow a little bit kind of the same thing we did the week before. We kind of saw that, in Eastern, there's a lot of similarities in their offense and what they do. So, week in and week out, you're seeing a lot of these offenses now are starting to look the same. So we're not going to see something totally different. Efficient quarterbacks always make you nervous. I mean, I think, I think that I think we're going to be a little more sound in what we do than what he faced last week. Just watching the film against Northwestern State. I mean, there's some big plays where they were just blowing coverages and they just didn't have people even there. And I don't know if those were mix-ups or anything. So we have to be sound. I think we're more sound probably than what they saw last week. Just being transparent. And I think we're not real complex on the defensive side. So I think that'll help just being in the right places. We had guys in the right places on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
You just had some special dudes making plays too.
Something we didn't mention either was the special teams from last week. I mean, it's always something we mention that, when your punter is spectacular, you don't want him on the field that much, obviously. But, Jed Stugart, what can he say about him? Yeah. He averaged almost 45 yards per punt on Saturday. I mean, he's special. He's really going to help out this year.
Yeah, and a great addition for our football team as far as the special teams, but as a person too. I mean, just been a great addition to us as a teammate. Guys love him. Already becomes a great spiritual leader for us in the locker room and things like that. I mean, just a great kid. And then the addition of Brett Garner too, is our field goal kicker, was with us up at Sioux Falls. Was able to transfer here for his last year from Northwest Missouri State. Graduated there and was able to grad transfer here so to reunite with him has been because just the consistency Brett has, because our kickoff coverage last year really hurt us and a lot of that was the placement of kicks and things, and Brett's been able to put the ball where it's supposed to be, and you can see the result. We're able to contain the kick returner. Our coverage teams did an outstanding job, and Brett was a big part of that. So our both of our kickers, kicker and punter right now, are outstanding. The guy, think of Reed Williams, our long snapper. I mean, that's one guy never gets talked about when it comes to punting and kicking. A lot of that's based on the snap of a ball and where that's positioned.
Sure.
And Reed hits that on the money every time, and that always has nobody sees on the NFL or anything on a missed extra point or field goal where the snap is. Usually on a miss, if you see where the snap is, it has a lot to do with a miss. Sure. Everybody just thinks.
But they never get blamed, right?
Yeah, they don't get blamed. But if the spot's wrong and all those things, so overall, like I said, all those little things in our special teams was clicking Saturday, and that's why we performed like we did.
And you mentioned too just how great of guys they are, and that's something I keep going back to, is just how great the chemistry of the team is, and then like each person individually comes up, says hi to you on the bus. We're on the trip, they're shaking our hands, they're having a good time, but they don't have big heads. It's all, everybody kind of knows their role and knows that they can, be a good part of this team. Yeah,
humility is a big word we talk about here, and I it's just kind of playing in such a way that the guy next to you gets the credit, and I think kids buy into that, and they're buying into that more, and so that's refreshing to hear, that you feel that way as well, because that's kind of really the staple of our program is playing for each other and playing for the guy next to you.
The Lions open up their home schedule this Saturday as they'll take on Midwestern State. The Mustangs come to town for a 6 p.m. game Saturday, September 14th at Hunter Stadium. Get your tickets online, lindenwoodlions.com. Coach, you got one more last thing to ask you. Kind of a shout out to the fans. What can they expect for this Saturday?
Well, I think it's just a new attitude football team this year. I mean, I think last year was an encouragement because we were, going from our very first year here, we were things went bad. We kind of fell apart. Last year, we fought back and we were in the almost category. We had a lot of almost wins, and I think we're, the way we ended the season at Midwest at Mo West last year, and then even how we fought this week, this past game, and going into this one, I think our kids have a quiet confidence about them that, hey, we want to play with anybody. And so I think you're going to see a new attitude look out there, and a team that believes they can win. They want to play for each other, and they want to, they want to get their first win here at Hunter, for the season.
Coach, we appreciate your time as always, and good luck this Saturday.
Thanks, TJ. Appreciate you.